श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। कृतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विजयगुरोगणामधेतरविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। वेदव्यासं स्वात्मारूपं सत्यसन्धं परायणं शान्तं जितेन्द्रियक्रोधं सशिष्यं प्रणमाम्यहम्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। नारायणपरो व्यक्तादण्डमव्यक्तसम्भवं मण्डस्यान्तस्तु मे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनीं पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणे स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितां पुराणमयिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीं बत्वा मनसन्दतां भगवद्गीते भवेद्देशिनीं श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् अवतीर्णश्च कालट्यां केदारेन्दरितश्चेतुपीडप्रतिष्ठाय यदाच्यङ्गुरो गुरुः. So we were looking at the 30th shloka, 29th and 30th shloka. Apane jihvati pranam prane panam tadavare prana panagati ruddva pranayama parayanaha apare nihataharaha pranan praneshu jihvati sarve pete yajnavido yajnakshapita kalmashaha. So this shloka we were looking at. So again, we looked at the first half of this shloka. Apare niyatahara pranam praneshu juhvati. So they others. So here again, while looking at the different type of sacrifices offered by the yogis, Bhagavan says that others with regulated food and they offer their prana in the life breath itself. Pranam praneshu juhvati. Prana they offer in the prana itself. So like this he explains. So that's what we are looking. So as I said previously, some commentator Vakyanas, they explain that they join the 29th shloka with the first half of the shloka, 30th shloka, apare niyatahara pranan pranesh jivati. That's along with the previous shloka, apane jivati pranam prane apanam tadapare prana panagati ruddha pranayama parayanaha. So they join with that, so like Srimad Saraswati, for example, these three padas together, he gives the explanation because this also touches again on the pranayama. So apare nihatahara. So the others who are different from the previous ones that we looked at, who are dravya yajna and various other type of yajnas they are performing, these ones who remained engaged in pranayama by stopping the movement of prana and apana, which is exhalation and inhalation, they successfully and simultaneously stopping those things, who are niyatahara, well regulated in the food, who are having who are great with disciplines of yoga, with regulation of food, they offer jihvati, they offer, that is, they merge through the practice of kumbhaka and so on, as part of the pranayama, the pranas in the form of sense organs and motor organs, action, karmendriya and jnanendriya and karmendriyas, in the pranas itself, in the vital forces, in the vital breath, they merge in that, which have been controlled through practice of this pranayama, this kumbhaka, internal and external kumbhaka. So that's how it's explained. Here, Srimad Saraswati explains a little bit more about pranayama. Okay, so again, we looked at, as part of the Ashtanga Yoga, we looked at already yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara, pranayama, we are yet to look at, that's what we are going to look. And then after pranayama, we have pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, samadhi. So these Ashtanga Yogas, we looked at everything except pranayama. That's the only thing we need to look as part of these yajnas defined, described by Bhagavan. Right. So now here, looking at this pranayama, Srimad Saraswati in his Vakhyana, he says that all this Patanjali in his Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he says that tasmin sati shvasa prashvasayor gati vichcheda pranayama. He says that what pranayama is, when that is there. So that is again tasmin sati means he is continuing on the previous, which is asana. So when the asana, the posture or the seat becomes steady, at that time, then comes pranayama in the form of stoppage of movement of exhalation and inhalation. So this pranayama, which should be practiced, of what kind of that is? It is shvasa prashvasayor gati vichcheda. So it is in the form of stoppage of movement of exhalation and inhalation. So shvasa prashvasa. So it is movement of that air inside and outside, controlling of that. And it is characterized as vichcheda. It is stoppage itself successively and simultaneously through personal effort of that movement of the air of natural flow occurring without personal effort. So stopping that with personal effort, through personal effort, stopping that of that exhalation and inhalation is the function of prana and apana. So that's what Patanjali explains. And he further explains the same subject. He says that Satu bhahyabhyantara stamba vrittir deshakala sankhyaabhi paridrushto dirgha sukshmaha. So he says that this pranayama has external movement, internal movement, and stoppage. These, when tested according to the distance, time, and number, became long and subtle. So it becomes deshakala sankhyaabhi paridrushto dirgha sukshma. So it becomes dirgha, so it is very long, or it becomes very subtle, sukshma, very sukshma pranayama. How it happens? It happens through deshakala sankhyaabhi paridrushto dirgha sukshma. So it becomes like that by distance, time, and number. So here again, pranayama, there are three things: puraka, rechaka, and kumbhaka. We will look at that here. So the puraka, which consists of stoppage of outward movement of the breath, and therefore is known as bahya vritti or outward movement. In this statement from Patanjali, where he says satu bahyabhyantara stamba vrittir deshakala sankhyaabhi paridrushto dirgha. So in that bahyabhyantara, so the bahya vritti is, or the outward movement is the puraka. So it is the stoppage of the outward movement, that is puraka step in the pranayama. So and then rechaka, which is actually the exhalation movement, that means you are stopping the inward movement of the breath, is known as antarvritti. So that is stands as rechaka. So the bahyabhyantara, so bahya vritti and antarvritti, Patanjali says is puraka and rechaka. Then again he says that Madhusudan Saraswati says that some says that bahya is explained as rechaka, some says that antara is the other way as well. And then he says that stamba here means the stoppage of both movements, and that action is known as kumbhaka. So the holding of that breath is known as kumbhaka. And that's why, like this, there are three types in the three steps or three types in the pranayama when explained from the point of view of distance, time, and number. So that's why through those three points, when we look at it from three different points, the pranayama is considered as either dirgha or as a sukshma. Okay, so dirgha means long and sukshma is subtle one, smaller one. So it is like that. Pranayama could be classified like that using the measures of distance, time, and number. Now we look at what the distance, time, and number, which actually define this pranayama as dirgha or sukshma. So just like when a clump of cotton we compress, which is a compressed clump of cotton, when it is spun, it becomes a long, thin, just like when this pranavayu, when through the practice of the pranayama, by increasing its distance, time and number, becomes dirgha as well as it becomes sukshma. So that's how Srimad Saraswati explains in his Bhashya, saying that this pranayama could be just like a cotton. So you could see it as a clump of cotton, a small thing, or it could make it a very long thing. But it is actually the same thing. Same thing. Similarly, a breath starting from the heart extends up to the distance of 12 fingers in the front of the nose. When it extends up to that from heart, it extends up to the tip of the nose, front of the nose. So that's the normal breath. And returning from there itself, it enters into the heart. So from that tip of the nose, it enters into the heart. This is the natural movement of prana and apana. So prana is, again, we looked at previously, is the outward upward movement. The outward movement, apana is the inward downward movement. So by practice, however, that prana, apana, that movements, however, it can be gradually come out from the navel region or from Mooladhara. Mooladhara is anus. Okay, from that point, it can come out from that point. So by practice gradually. Again, pranayama is one should practice gradually, and it is very important because things could go wrong very easily with that practice. So when it is gradually practiced, it can come out. So normal breathing is from heart to nose, nose to heart, which is about 12 finger distance. Okay, that's what measured here. And when it is goes, or if it is practiced from navel region, so going up from navel to nose and then coming down from navel to nose to navel, or it could go up to Mooladhara, so anus region. So it could go up to that. So then it could become either 24 fingers distance or it's 36 fingers distance. Okay. Similarly, the distance, whether it's inward or outward movement of that vayu, that could be decided like that. Similarly, that's the distance part. Okay. So how a pranayama, so when one takes air in, till where it goes, so or from where where the air comes out of, from whether it is from the heart region or from the bottom region, then it depends on the pranayama, whether it's dirgha or sukshma. And similarly, time-wise, okay. So time-wise, when we are measuring, it says that a kshana is the term kshana, the measurement kshana, is 1/4 of a time takes for a blinking of an eye. Okay, that's the kshana. Their number also is known. So again, the time taken for this kshana is also known. And the another term used here is matra, which means a snapping of the finger after encircling around one's kneecap 3 times with one's palm. So when it is done, that's known as a matra. So the time that takes to pranayama is again 36 matras is known as manda. It is weak, and then it takes as a itself again when it is doubled that takes as a madhyama or medium one, and when it is tripled, it is known as a tivra or intense. So like this, the pranayama duration, how much one can hold or release, or one can intake or one can release, and those kind of things, it can become known as a manda, madhyama, or tivra. 3 types of that. So like this, the timing as well is known, determines what type of time, and the number, those also determine the pranayama, how long, and whether it is dirgha, sukshma, pranayama. And then, although in that kumbhaka, when the air is, again, kumbhaka is 2 times, we will come to that, but kumbhaka is when the air movement is completely stopped at that time. So there is obviously the time and number, these becomes very important. And like this, the 3 types of pranayama, the puraka, rechaka, and kumbhaka, are practiced every day. So those are practiced always practiced, and that's how this pranayama is. Patanjali explains that when he says that Bhashya Vishayakshepi Chaturtha. So the fourth type is the independent of those which are concerned by external and internal. So Patanjali says that there is a fourth type of this pranayama that is independent of all this, where the outgoing breath is concerned with the external, that is the distance, time, and number, is called as Rechaka. The inward inflowing breath concerned with is called as Puraka. Okay, and again, some people say otherwise, but it is normally known as Rechaka is outside and Puraka is inward, internal breath. And there are two types of kumbhakas. Okay, so the kumbhaka, again, one is the kumbhaka which is known as external, and Bhashya Kumbhaka, another one is known as Antar Kumbhaka. So this fourth pranayama, which is the Kumbhaka, which is repeated efforts through which, again, through skillfulness, in practice of Kumbhaka alone, independently from the Rechaka and Puraka. So without Puraka and Rechaka, one practices Kumbhaka. That is the fourth type, where Bhahyabhantara Vishayakshepi means here again, which means independently of those Rechaka and Puraka, one practices the Kumbhaka. So that's what here it is explained. So what pranayama again, this type of pranayama, like this, the pranayama is practiced by holding the prana breath itself. So I said two types of kumbhaka. One is internal anta kumbhaka and bahya kumbhaka. Anta kumbhaka means we take air inside and then hold there. Bahya kumbhaka is you release, you empty, there is no air inside, empty, completely empty, and then hold that breath. So you don't intake. Okay, so you just hold. So that is anta kumbhaka. So there is two types of kumbhaka, bahya kumbhaka and anta kumbhaka. So like this puraka, rechaka, and kumbhaka are the three steps or three modes, three methods of this pranayama. So that's what explained in these verses here. And again, just to go a little bit more on the pranayama. Prana is the vital breath in the body, and ayama means checking. So that's why pranayama means checking or restraining that breath. And this again, as I just said, is of three steps forms here: puraka, rechaka, and kumbhaka. Once when the nostril is pressed with the finger and the air from the bare stomach is let out through the other, one nostril is pressed and the air is left out. Air is pressed or sent outside, let outside. That is known as rechaka. Okay, it is exhaling. So it is holding and then releasing through, normally through right nose, it is released. So that is known as rechaka. Then there is through the other nostrils, when the external air is inhaled into the body, it fills the body. That's known as puraka, inhaling. And in that time, the one who does not breathe out or internal breathe or external air, he remains filled with inside the air. So the air is filled inside. That is known as kumbhaka. So like this, the three rechaka, puraka, and again, that should not be done hurriedly, or it should not be done very slowly. The practices, again, those who practice this yoga should adopt them gradually with restraint. Okay, so it should be done with carefully. And then pranayama itself consists of three letters, a, u, ma. So which is part of the pranava sound, omkara sound. So a, u, ma. So in other words, a is represented in the puraka, in the intake, inhaling, and then who is denoted in the kumbhaka, in the breath holding, and then ma is denoted in the rechaka. So again, it said that when one doing the puraka, one should meditate on the navel region, where the four-armed Vishnu should be meditated, and he should be of blue color with like a lotus, blue lotus, he should be of like that, should be meditated. When kumbhaka is done, it should be in the heart region, in the heart of the lotus, where Brahma Prajapati should be meditated upon. The creator, he was seated, Brahma seated on a lotus should be meditated. And while doing Rechaka, it should be on the forehead, and at that time, white Krishna, like a pure, like a crystal, like Shankara, Shiva should be meditated upon. So in Puraka, union with Vishnu is obtained. In Kumbhaka, knowledge of Brahma is attained, and in Rechaka, highest position of Ishvara is attained through that. So like this, the pranayama brings that. And pranayama again, as we just said through Srimad Saraswati Vyakhyana, there are 4 varieties in this, again based on the time unit and things like that. So Uttama, Madhyama, and Tivra. So like this, there are Manda, Uttama, Madhyama, Manda, Madhyama, Uttama, Tivra, like this. So there are different varieties of that. And the pranayama again sometimes is classified as 6 different types. So there is sadhuma pranayama, where the breath is not very steady. And then another one is known as nirduma pranayama, which is better than the sadhuma, which is the breath is steady. Another one is sagarbha pranayama, where then one unites that pranayama with mantra. So Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka, all these are united with mantras. So at that time, one says the mantras. Okay, says in sense recollects through mind. One says the mantras, and then there is agarbha pranayama, which is practiced without the mantras, and then salaksha, when is one heart is fixed on devata, and then alaksha is when heart is not fixed on one devata. So like this, there are different types of pranayama, but normally when you look at it, it's said as sagarbha, agarbha. 2 different types are mentioned. So normally, when any commencement of any karmas as prescribed in the Shrutis or Smritis, so Shrauta or Nartha karmas, when performing, one is performing, at that time Sagarbha pranayama is normally performed. Okay, Sagarbha is one with the mantras. So it could be Gayatri mantra pranayama, or it could be any Mula mantras that's there like that. So those pranayamas are performed with the mantras. So again, number of mantras one says, how many times one says while intake, Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka is all will be learned, should be learned through the gurus. So then the other one, in all the other times, so for example, females, anyone who does not have the mantra upadesha and things like that, them doing the pranayama, the most of the pranayamas we hear today, when there is a yoga class happening and they teach pranayama and all those kind of things we hear today, are simply known as agarbha pranayama. That means there is no mantra involved in that, even though some these days we say Omkara during that, but Omkara japa is again requires Guru's Upadesha. Okay, so that's cannot be considered as a Sagarbha pranayama when it is generally done through the yoga sessions. So Sagarbha pranayama is one done with one recites mentally the mantras at that time during the Puraka, Kumbhaka, Rechaka. Agarbha is one when does without mantras. Then Sagarbha pranayama, in terms of merits, Sagarbha pranayama is 100 times more great merit than the Agarbha pranayama, and that's why it is one should those who are eligible should practice the Sagarbha pranayama. And this pranayama again, I think I said previously briefly. So this pranayama is related to the vayus, right? So the breath intake, and that breath, the vital breath, and that breath itself is defined as either pancha pranas. Okay, so prana is defined as the pancha pranas. So Hridaya prana, Udaya prana, Samano, Navimandali, Udara, Kantadesha, Syat, Vyana, Sarva Sharira. So prana is in the heart, engaged in breathing. Apana is downward movement when it goes through the anus. And Samana is controlling the body It resides in the nadi, in the navel region, and vana is the movement of the legs and hands, and it resides in the sarva sharira, in all the parts of the body that air, and then udana is the one that coming up, so that's comes up like burp or external breathing and things like that, the exhalation and things like that, which also includes bringing the sound and from stomach to mouth and things like that. So those are all udana. There are other ways also classifying this pranavayu, and pranavayu sometimes is classified not just as pancha pranas but 10 variations. So these 5 remains: prana, apana, samana, udana, vana. These 5 remain. But in addition to that, we have naga, kurma, krikara, devadatta, and dhananjaya. So these 5 also added. So in that case, it is defined as the one that causes the movement is known as prana. Apana is the air which takes the food to the lower down, and vana is the one that through the limbs. Vana is the one that is diffused through the limbs and it develops them, it helps them. Udana is the vital air that is affects the vulnerable points in the body among the limbs and things like that, and it brings and samana is the one that spreads the air equally across all the areas of the body. Naga is the one that helps in burping, activity of burping, and then kurma is the one that activity of like dosing of the eyes and things like that, it does that. And then krikara is the one that activity of sneezing, and then devadatta is the one the activity of yawning, and then Dhananjaya is the one that circulates throughout the body. And it is said that Dhananjaya Vayu, that vital force, even it does not leave even after death of the body. So that remains. So like this, the pranavayus are different types. Normally, it is known as pancha pranas, but there are other 5 as well. In some places, it's mentioned. Now, again, there is how the pranayama, while doing the pranayama, how the nose should be held. I said through the fingers, one should hold the nose. It is again says that vanaprasthas and grahasthas would do pranayama with 5 fingers, holding the tip of the nose, while brahmacharis and yatis, they do pranayama with thumbs and little finger and the ring finger, avoiding the middle and forefinger. They will hold through thumb, little and middle fingers. So that is for the brahmacharis and yatis. But grihasthas and vanaprasthas, they hold through 5 fingers. All the 5 fingers they should hold the nose, the blocking and releasing of that. So ange panchangali bhir nasagram pidayet pranavena tu sarva papara mudra vanaprastha grihasthayoh kanishtika anamika angushtayr tescha brahmacharinaha. So it says that. So kanishtika, anamika, angushta for brahmacharis. So it is thumbs, little finger, and the ring finger for the brahmacharis. So what is the benefit of the pranayama? So when it is gradually practiced, pranayama is very beneficial. It burns off all the defects, all the sins it removes. So for example, any sins one commits, if one does a pranayama certain number of times in the day, all the sins are removed because of that pranayama. And also it preserves the body of the practices, so that means it lengthens the lifespan. Okay, so because again Yoga Shastra says that this body, just like car purchase, you purchase after X number of years or mileage, right? This car is now not worth, right? So it's its engine going to break or whatever we say, right? So this engine is worth 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles. It's dead. Okay, it's no longer a great car just because it has done so much mileage. Just like this body is, when we say 100 years it can live, 100 years means it has defined for X number of breathings. And if one slowly controls that breathe and reduces the number of breath intake and outtake, reduces that speed, then the lifespan can lengthen. So that's what it said. And then again, those who practice pranayama, for them, the urine and phlegm and fecus and things like that, those all will be reduced in quantity. They can eat, ability to eat much and breathe slowly. They will have those abilities, and then their body will be lightness. There will be lightness in their body. They will be able to, and they will have the ability to walk fast. They will have enthusiasm, clearness in the voice, tone, and they will have. It will destroy many illnesses, and especially asthma and other areas, pranayama they recommend quite a lot. Okay, because it helps the breathing and breath control. That helps those areas that we see in Ayurveda and other places as well. So, like this pranayama has many benefits, and it says that it helps in one's brilliance, its comeliness, features, and courage, intelligence, youthfulness, firmness. All these are the symptoms of one who does the pranayama. And again, in terms of other areas, it also says that all forms of austerities, expiation, sacrifices, charitable gifts, and any dharmika karmas one performs, they do not come even to a 16th part of benefit of a pranayama. So there is no yoga that is compared to pranayama. It is equal to itself only. So nothing can be its equal. So that's what the Purana says greatly of the pranayama. And Yoga Shastra speak highly of the pranayama, because again, I said previously, this sin destroying pranayama is said many places is said as pranayama destroys the sin. So it is one of the expiation methods, and anyone who, for example, Smritis talk about if one eats food which should not be eaten and things like that. There are some methods, but performing pranayama destroys some of those sins. So that doesn't mean that can eat and do the pranayama, but if one unknowingly commits some sins, they could expiation part is through this pranayama. Now, that's the first half of the shloka where apare nihatahara pranam praneshu yupadi. So that's linked to that pranayama topic. Now we look at the second half of this shloka where we where svvp yajna vido yajna kshapita kalmashaha. So here sarve api, so all of them are the knowers of the sacrifice. So here, all of them. So all the yajna sacrifices we looked at. So dravya yajna, tapa yajna, all those things. So all of them we looked at. They are all, Bhagavan says that they are all the knower of the yajna vida. They are all the knowers of the sacrifice. They knows how to perform sacrifice. And yajna kshapita kalmasha. They have their sins have been destroyed by the sacrifices, as mentioned previously up to now. Through all those sacrifices, their sins have been destroyed. So that means again, those who know or come to possess those yajnas that's been mentioned so far, those who know or perform those sacrifices, their sins, their kalmashas have been destroyed. Kshapita means destroyed by these sacrifices, yajnas, by these yajnas. So again, sarvepyate here means sarva means all of them. So what all the things we looked at so far from the 24th shloka in this adhyaya through here, what are we looked at? So we started with Brahma Arpanam Brahma Havir, right? So from that shloka we started different types of yajnas, sacrifices we started looking at. So first one we looked at in the 24th shloka, Brahmapanam Brahmahavir. We looked at Brahma Drishti, where yogi here sees everything as a Brahma, right? There is nothing different, nothing else for him, whether it's all those things were Brahma. And then we looked at in the 25th shloka where we say Daiva Meva Pare Yajnam Yogina Sarva Paryupasade Brahmagna Pare Apare Yajnam Yajnanaiva Upajuhvati. So with there we looked at Daiva Yajna and Brahma Yajna, right? So that's what we looked at. And then श्रोत्रादीन इंद्रियाण्ये सम्यक भाग्मे जुह्वति शब्दादीन विषयान्य इंद्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति 26th shloka. There we looked at where yogi offers his shrotra and other hearing and all those things, senses into the samyaka, in the self-restraint, Agni called self-restraint, and then in that same Agni, self-restraint Agni, he offers Shabdadi and other, the Vishayas, Shabda, taste and all those things, he offers in the Indriyas itself, he offers. And then we looked at in the 27th shloka, Atma Samyama, where Sarvani Indriya Karmani, Prana Karmani Chapare, Atma Samyama Yogagno, Jufadi Jnana-Dipide. So through that, he, Atma Samyama, he offers, and then through knowledge he offers that, through in that Agni offers. And then we looked at Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Tadapare, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajnascha Yadaya Samchita Vrata. So there we looked at Dravya, Tapa, Yoga, Swadhyaya. So Dravya is material, Tapa is again austerities, penance, Yoga through your performing yogas, and Swadhyaya is through learning or learning of the scriptures and things like that, and then to Jnana Yajna through all this, and then Sanchita Vrata. So they are all performing the vratas, right? So we looked at those things. And then in this last two shlokas, we looked at pranayama, anna, ahara, all these kind of controls of those things. So apane for the pranam, prane apanam tadhapare, prana apanagati radva, pranayama parayana. And then in this shloka, first half of this shloka, we looked at apare niyatahara, prana pranesh yupade. So we looked at pranayama, and then niyatahara. So controlling of the food, and then so those things we looked at, anna, ahara. So those also we looked at as part of this shloka. So when Bhagavan says sarvepyeti yajnavido, so sarvepyeti, all those, okay, all those. So that's all this from 24th shloka Brahmarpanam, from there to apare nihatahara, pranam pranesh yufade. Till here, all those yogis that's mentioned, they all, okay, so it covers all of them. All of them are knowers of the sacrifices. They do it differently. Okay, somebody probably doing pranayama, somebody may be doing dravya yajna, okay, giving away their wealth in the tirtha kshetras, they may be doing, okay, or there may be somebody doing in the sacrifices in the homas, in the agni, or some may be doing a creating a wells and ponds and things like that, water bodies for people to drink and things like that. Or some may be building gardens, and some may be building planting trees by the roadside. All these things are different types of sacrifices we looked at. Okay, controlling their senses, their Kashtamavana, very vritas they are performing, penances, Chandrayana, Kritya Chandrayana, and other penances they may be performing. All these are, they are all knowers of the sacrifice. They are all knowers of the sacrifices, and their sins have been destroyed, Bhagavan says. So through this, their sins have been destroyed. So now, when he says that, after saying all those things, accomplishing all these mentioned yajnas, Bhagavan next says in the next shloka, in the 31st shloka, he says that yajnasishta amrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatham nayam lokastya yajnasya kuton anya purusattama. So yajnashishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam nayam loko astya jnasya kuto anya purusattama. So those who partake the nectar left over after the sacrifice reach the eternal Brahman. This world ceases to exist for one who does not perform a sacrifice, who speak what to speak of the other world, O Arjuna. So like this Bhagavan explains, Yajnashishta means Yajnashishtamrita bhuja means those who partake the nectarine, that is remnant, whatever remains after the sacrifice. Yanti means go, Brahma means absolute truth, Sanatanam means eternal, Na means never, Ayam means this, Loka means planet, Asti means is, Ayajnasya means those who perform no sacrifice, Kuta means how, Anya means other, And Purushottama is addressing Arjuna. We will look at this shloka in detail next time when we can.